Hey, Nathan,
Yes, Blake.
do you think it's possible to get ill off like a television show?
I can only assume so because, I mean, I watched this Raw episode of Raw like a good few weeks ago at this point, and I still feel like my sinus has been ran through by a subway train.
Because I feel really sick. I think it's sort of giving off some sort of like toxic like light pattern or something that's making me feel queasy.
It's like, the forget-me-not gas you were talking about a few weeks ago.
No, I've forgotten.
That's fine. I'd know where to go with that joke anyway.
So hello and welcome to another edition of Going in Raw with me, Blake, and this is my tag team partner, Nathan.
Hello, I am the muscles of the group.
And he's recorded today from his little cupboard that he's got in his new house, so he's feeling pretty pleased about himself. And today we are talking about the April the 12th edition of Raw 1993, which comes to us live from the Mid-Hudson Civic Centre in
It's Poughkeepsie.
Poughkeepsie, thank you, in Pewter City.
And we get a fairly unusual opening this week. We get a, what do you call it, a cold open when it like just cuts straight to a bit?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah, probably. Just kind of cut straight to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it opens up on Money Inc., like, our favourite boys from the WrestleMania 9 that we watched fairly recently,
Mm-hmm.
and they're bribing the Beverly Brothers backstage getting information on the Steiners.
Yeah, there's like a heel talent exchange going on in the locker area, isn't there, Nathan?
Yeah, and it's the weirdest exchange ever, because first of all, IRS hands over the money and says, don't worry, it's tax-free. First of all, he's laxing on his job. Second of all, yeah, it should be. I mean, if you're considering it like a gift to a friend or a family member, something like that, then yeah, you don't have to pay tax on it.
It's like,
I mean, it's you who's saying, oh, this is for work, but don't worry about it. He's cheating himself, Blake.
it's like that bit in the Shawshank Redemption where like he nearly gets thrown off the roof, but he convinces the guy that he can give money to his wife as a gift and not have to pay the tax man it. Do you remember? Remember that bit? That really specific bit from Shawshank Redemption?
That specific 10 seconds from Shawshank Redemption, a film that I've seen like in like 5 separate bits that I've had to piece together in my mind.
So the the Beverleys and the Money Inc. are discussing, as you say, how to best neutralize the Steiner brothers. Because tonight we have, in singles competition, IRS and Scott Steiner going out of their tag team sort of formats into singles wrestling, which is quite exciting. But yeah, it's a very low energy bit.
It becomes very clear very quickly that Money Inc. just don't watch wrestling. Because the stuff that the Beverly Brothers tell them, which is basically, right, avoid their suplexes and take out the legs. Like, you could know that just from, like, watching any one Steiner match. It's like, I mean, the only advice that the Beverly Brothers really give them is, yeah, you're fucked, mate.
It is, yeah, watch out for the Frankensteiner. That's his finishing move.
Yeah.
And it's come on, guys, come on.
But anyway, that's all there really is to say about that bit, I think.
Yeah, there's not really much going on there. So we go to the titles, and then we come to a kind of aerial shot of the Mid-Hudson Civic Centre, and it's Vince McMahon and Macho Man on the commentary desk. They're doing the little piece to camera by the ring like they normally do, and they have with them tonight Rambling Rob Bartlett. He's rambled all the way from Las Vegas, baby.
He made it back, bless him.
Yay.
He hitchhiked his way all across America.
It's a shame, obviously, like it was that stereotypical thing in horror movies where they go on a hitchhiking thing and then they get picked up by a serial killer and killed. All I'm saying is shame.
But yeah, they also tease the fact, as well as like them teasing the Scott Steiner versus IRS match, not a tag team, strangely enough.
No.
But, whatever, we'll see what comes of that. And they also tease the fact that Bartlett is going to be interviewing Luna Vachon later on today.
Now, you did allude to this last week, and I've been excited about it all week, and it didn't disappoint, I want to say.
No, but we'll get to that when it sort of comes up chronologically. And then it's brought up, they have a new character coming onto the show, and you could tell me a bit more of the history, Blake, but this is sort of like, in terms of the gimmick era of WWF, whereabouts are we? Are we like cresting the middle, or are we like nearing the end of that? Because I feel like Friar Ferguson is like the absolute fucking pits
Yeah.
of like gimmick era.
I think, to be fair, we've got a little bit still to go because we've got things like Mantor coming, and that's more WCW than here. But and then we've got all that, obviously,
Yeah.
that rise of like two job wrestlers, as I talked about a little while ago, with like Bob Holly's also a race car driver. So we've got that era kind of coming more in the next few years. But in terms of gimmicks that just backfire, don't work, and should forever be cast out of whatever monastery he came from, Friar Ferguson is the pits. But Rob Bartlett, I just want to say before we go any further, I think he looks good here, but you disagree with me. He's lost his glasses. It looks like he's lost weight.
Oh yeah, I mean, like it could just be my bias because I'm not a beard guy, but he looks pretty dishevelled to me, like just in terms of like the facial stuff. And he's wearing like a really strange, colourful sweater vest that clashes with the shirt that he has.
Oh.
And I think I understand why he's wearing that. Like, I'm guessing Vince just turned up and said, right, just throw on something you don't mind losing.
Yeah, it's like when you do arts and crafts when you're in like sort of primary school, and they're like, "Oh, wear something that you don't mind." Like when you like you paint your house or whatever, and they're like, "Wear something you don't mind getting ruined because it's going to be an absolute mess." But I completely get what you're talking about. But Nathan, you got to remember, he did escape the mean streets of Las Vegas, so like he just had to probably like nick it off a clothesline running past, you know. We move towards so with the Friar Ferguson chat, they run down the card and they say we've got Tatanka in action tonight, and they do a really nice job. But the clanger, and it is a huge clanger, they then have to do the sentence of, oh, and also we have a debuting Friar. He's a monk. He's called Friar Ferguson, and I literally looked at the screen and out loud to nobody, because I normally watch these with you, but watch these independently of each other. I went, "You what?"
That's the thing, because like during the first watch through of that bit, I didn't make a note of it because I like didn't quite understand what he said, because I refused to believe that he actually said they had a wrestling monk coming up.
I mean, like, okay, I give him a lot of stick, and I'm down on a lot of things, but in the back of my head, I was like, if this works, then this is going to be the best thing in the world. But then I remembered when you said, oh, there's someone debuting next week that is probably like,
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, it's that, isn't it? It's that.
But that's the thing, because I didn't want to spoil too much for you, but at the same time, I felt like I needed to warn you.
Just give me a bit of, it's nice to get a heads up, you know, because I think
It's like I can't change the timelines too much as a time traveler, but I do need to have some sort of subtle influence.
I've seen 11 million possible futures. In which, how many of them do we not get a wrestling Friar? None. He is inevitable. So we go towards our first match of the evening, IRS versus Scott Steiner. IRS comes out to the Money Inc. theme. He hasn't got his own independent theme. And he gets in the ring.
I noticed that.
I would have thought,
I
just
feel
give him a
really
little
bad
something.
for him.
Yeah, give him a little something.
Yeah, just have something, so it's not just, oh, here is a song that is entirely my tag team partner talking about how he's like richer than everyone.
Yeah, and some goblins going, money, money, money. He does a quick promo in the ring on a really bad quality microphone. It's crackly. The S's and much like my microphone, and when I speak, the S's and the P's pop funny and they crunch. And yeah, I didn't catch too much what he was saying. He was basically saying, oh, you know, his usual stick: pay your taxes, say your prayers to the taxman god, drink your milk.
Say your prayers, turtles.
Yeah, you know, that kind of thing.
But yeah, no, he was offering a very helpful reminder to everyone in the audience that they only have till Thursday to file their tax returns. So I think that's actually very good of him. I think he's like doing a bit of a face turn there.
I always forget tax return season. Always.
Yeah.
It's a wonder I'm not in federal prison. So it's nice to have that, because the second he said, oh, remember, you've got to get your... I had like flashbacks of all the times, like, you know, taxes have come into my mind. Like, am I paying the right tax? Is that been worked out right for me? Am I going to have to go to prison and like hang out with Butch Mahoney or whatever to get through?
That's the thing, because like when he mentioned that, I just wondered how many people in the audience have just gone, oh, fuck, yeah, he's right, that's on the top of my head now. I'm going to get home and do that first thing.
It's like a mass exodus from the arena. They're all running home to fill in their tax returns.
Vince McMahon has suddenly left the commentary desk.
Scott Steiner comes out to his tag team theme as well. So obviously it says to me that they don't often, if ever before, wrestle independently of their tag teams.
Yet, weirdly enough, this is for the belt, correct? This is for the tag team belt.
See, I couldn't figure that out. I'm not 100% that it was, you know.
Because they must have mentioned it at some point, because I've got it written down as like, as a question mark, like, this is for the belt, I think?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to kind of go back to the screenshots and find out and sort of see what happened there. But I know for a fact on the app, on the write-up on the WWE app, it does say that the Money Inc. has a match for the titles tonight on the write-up not actually on the show, but like the description on the network app. So it could be that's causing the confusion for us.
Okay, because I was going to say, like, is it common for tag team belts to be exchanged in a single combat?
Only when we were in the like heights of the pandemic last year, and they couldn't get all the tag teams in, and it was like
right.
the New Day and like one of the New Day, one of the Usos, and one of the other ones had like a 3-man ladder match for both tag team belts. Very unusual, very strange.
Interesting. Well, we'll get around to that.
Wrestling.
We'll get around to that in 20 years' time in Going in Raw.
Yeah, and I've like sort of Vietnam flashbacks. The crowd are hot. It's a really good opening sort of start from the crowd sort of point of view. We get a slow start from the wrestlers themselves. There's a bit of arm offense from IRS. They lock up and they go into the ropes. So IRS keeps losing the chain wrestling battle and then going to the ropes to get the break. IRS sort of takes Scott down and kicks him and gets him like a big power slam. So there's like an uppercut as well, and there's a big power slam from Scott who kind of reverses the action. He gets distracted by Ted. IRS, who slipped out of the ring when the power slam happened. After the power slam, he slides back in, and we go into like a lockup and a headlock, and they kind of do that thing where they like run off the ropes while still in the headlock, and Scott gives him a shoulder block. IRS reverses with a drop toe hold. So the action's pretty speedy, it's pretty punchy. I do feel we lose something from not having that angle of their tag team partners are on the ropes and could be tagged in at any time. But at the same time, just seeing them on their own as singles competitors, and they do a good job on commentary of saying these guys won't have the cardio because they are used to only wrestling half a match, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do bring that up a few times. There's a weird section, I can't remember. They're talking about, like, oh, blood is thicker than water, and then I guess Rob Bartlett counters that with, yeah, well, toothpaste is thicker than blood.
Which tells me that he's both tried to brush his teeth once with toothpaste and once with blood, and that's how he knows the difference.
And I'm looking to find out which one works better.
Yeah,
because I think we're being lied to by the dental industry.
Well, only 9. It's only ever 9 out of 10 dentists, isn't it? So there's that one rogue dentist going, no.
That other dentist is Rob Bartlett.
And he's
Have
saying,
you considered blood?
Yeah, use blood. Yeah, not the only mention of blood tonight in quite a controversial section of statements, but we'll come to that later. So there's a near fall, and Scott kind of stays on him on the ground with the ground headlock. They work up an arm submission. They go down to the mat, up to a waist lock. They're getting a good workout. IRS takes over with some big elbows. Scott blocks a suplex twice and then gives him one of his own. They lock up and go into the corner. And IRS gives him a thumb to the eye and throws Scott out. Ted clotheslines Scott on the outside and just rips his clothes off like a Chippendale.
Yeah, like both Rick and Ted DiBiase just start presenting to each other like male peacocks.
While that's all going on, like I say, Rick comes around to protect him, and they go to an advert break. When it comes back, I've noticed as they were leaving for the advert break, Vince keeps calling this a tag team match.
He does. Yeah, I was going to mention that as well.
As we're going to the break,
I also wanted to say, like, you know, we can say what we want about IRS, but I love the fact that he, like, deliberately attempts to keep his shirt tucked in at all times.
Yeah.
Like, every time he gets thrown down and comes back up, his first is just, right, tuck the shirt back in, can't let anyone see me happy trail.
It's because, Nathan, he knows that potential clients are watching us at home and are going to kind of engage him to do their taxes. So he's got to look professional at all times, you see. So we come back from the advert break, and IRS is firmly in control. And it's to the point where when we come back, Macho Man has to reiterate to everyone at home, we are now hearing singles, he says very distinctly and very clearly, singles action with IRS, and almost like a reminder to us at home and to Vince himself. I understand when you kind of get into like a rhythm and you're used to seeing them as a tag team, it's probably quite difficult to switch that bit of your brain off, just automatic speaking, which I think when I tune back in and listen to myself, I'm quite good at automatic speaking. Fuck knows what I'm talking about most of the time.
I mean, I can't exactly blame Vince. Like we say, like these two, like I don't know if I've ever seen them in singles combat.
No, I don't.
I mean, certainly not in like the 12 episodes of Raw that we've done now.
Has it been 12 already? Christ almighty.
This is the 12th episode. It's 12 if you include WrestleMania.
Jesus. There's a weak pile driver from IRS, and even Vince comments on it. Even he gives the old out of, didn't get all of it there. And there's a near fall, a slow chin lock. Scott fires up and then gets taken down. He taunts IRS, he stamps him, he gets him in a headlock. The crowd gets Scott back into it. IRS drops Scott over his knee like a backbreaker. IRS jumps into Scott's foot, so he goes at the top rope and he does that. Do you see what I
Sorry, I
have to
just
turn my
like the
notes
slow
then?
turn of the page. Yeah. Jumps into Scott's bed.
So he does that thing where he goes up the turnbuckle and jumps for like a double axe handle or whatever, and just jumps straight into his foot. They start trading right hands. Scott gives him like an elbow when IRS comes off the ropes. They go into a 10-punch spot, so Scott gives him like 5 and just lets it go. Scott goes, this is the only one bit of the match where I went, oh, Scott goes over the top rope holding IRS's tie. So as he comes down, he pulls him onto the top rope. It looked awesome. It was so cool. So Scott comes back in and he hits the back body drop, and we are picking up speed now. So as we're coming towards the end of the match, there's a double underhook, pins, and Ted comes in and breaks it up, and the match is then thrown out. So it goes into like a disqualification. That's it. Rick comes in and they all start fighting. So I think it was a really good match, and we were just picking up steam. But I think to keep IRS kind of like in that sort of position of power, I think it's probably a good thing that they ended it in a double DQ. Well, a DQ and Scott wins.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because like WrestleMania has left such a bad taste in my mouth that I hear a disqualification and go, ugh.
Yeah, it's I think it has been so overused. Like as you say, so it is very much that case of I've seen so many of them lately that I do feel like we are over encumbered with these DQ finishes.
It feels like the WWF. I don't really know what you call them, but writing team. I'm just going to label them as. Yeah, the creative process is just feeling very lazy recently.
Yeah, I think they've kind of got quite stilted. I don't know whether around this sort of time, obviously they're being expected to produce more, so they're having to cut corners in terms of thinking things through properly and spreading these things out.
That makes sense because this is we're only 12 weeks into Raw now, so they haven't had too much time to get a lot of practice in. Like they're used to just having like these big stories that span, every few months and maybe a couple of matches in between here and there. And now suddenly it's having to be a weekly live broadcast that they're writing. So I can forgive a little laziness.
We've seen as well. If I was listening to the episode before we started recording today, and we have seen in that creative process, often we do get that situation where we're expecting one match next week and then it just gets changed as it was this week.
So do you reckon then that means that what we're about to go into, the whole rivalry between Money Inc. and the Beverly Brothers was literally created within the last week?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it does seem like they really didn't interact on screen before today, really. Then you had that bit backstage where they were kind of giving them advice, and now all of a sudden, as you say, the Beverly Brothers make an appearance. And so, yeah, it just feel like, okay, past WrestleMania now, we need to kind of start doing something different with our tag team champions. Let's kind of get them fighting another heel team, like a breakdown of like this sort of heel faction that's just formed about 10 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's strange the way this is presented because the Beverly Brothers initially come in to help Money Inc. because like the Steiners just like lay into Money Inc. even past the bell ringing because they're upset that there was a disqualification. They wanted the belt, the pride, the honor of the win, whatever was going to happen there. And so the Beverly Brothers thinking, oh no, they gave us money. They might ask for that back if we don't come in and like be their bodyguards a bit. So we'll run in and do some punching. They run the Steiners out of town. And then they just start mouthing off at each other. Yeah,
there's a bit of tempers kind of frayed, don't they? They get Ted up to do the tag team finisher to him, and the Beverly Brothers run in and break all that down. Like you say, beat up Scott and Rick. Scott and Rick make their escape. IRS slides out of the ring to maybe grab a foreign object that was referenced earlier, but never actually came or anything.
Yeah, no, I noticed that because there was like he was slipping something into his pocket. It looked like his back pocket, and it was mentioned on commentary. Oh, what's he doing with his pocket there? And yeah, I thought it was like slipping a scalpel or something. I don't know what like foreign objects they use to poke people in the eye, but like I was expecting something to come of it, and nothing did.
Yeah, it's a bit strange. They do square off against each other. They throw IRS out. Beverly the Beverly was taunt and trying to get like Money back in the ring. But then Ted goes out as well, and they kind of they didn't come to too many blows. It was like a very sort of standoffish atmosphere, frosty atmosphere. But this new faction's broken down, and the tag team champions leg it up the aisleway while still mouthing off and going, yeah, bollocks. And the Beverly's like, we'll get back in the ring then, and we'll sort it out in the ring. And that's kind of like the end of that bit, I guess. But yeah, it's a bit strange.
Yeah.
Bit unusual. We'll see where it goes next week, I guess.
I suppose, yeah. For what this time, I haven't actually seen what happens next week.
I was just about to ask, are you still 1 week ahead?
No,
so
no.
Like,
I feel like that distracted me a little bit last week, so I'm going to try and avoid that where I can.
Okay, so we go to another pimping out of WrestleMania 9. And now they even mention the fact that the belt's changed hands twice. The championship belt at the end of the night changed hands twice. This is obviously because after Raw tonight is that replay broadcast that you can buy on pay-per-view that we were talking about last week. So they're still trying to get you to buy their old shit from WrestleMania 9. We go to our next match, which is Tatanka versus Von Cruz, the German.
Von Cruz looks... I know we've said this about Bob Backlund before, but Von Cruz actually looks like the world's oldest baby. He's just a large, like, relatively chubby, bold, round individual.
Yeah, very roly-poly, I think, is a nice way of describing him, isn't it? If you get what I mean. So, yeah, we start off in the match, and Tatanka charges into the ring. Von Cruz is already in the ring, and he kind of steps out almost at a run, almost scared of him, like he's going to slide in, the match is going to start immediately, and also to kind of let him get in, do his entrance and things, and stuff like that, which I think is quite polite of him, I guess. Obviously, I know later on he turns out, well, you see in the match that he is very firmly a heel, but there we are. We start off, and we get a lockup, and so Von Cruz takes over the beatdown. Tatanka leapfrogs over him, then drops to the ground, gives him like a monkey flip, leaps back up, gives him an arm drag. They go into the corner with chops. We are very much on Tatanka's speed, on his level. He is very firmly, I reckon, probably choreographed this match. And Von Cruz is going to follow him along. And then...
Oh, are you talking about what is said by Vince or the special guest appearance that we get?
Oh, no, you're quite right. No, that is the other thing I always talk about in a little while. But no, we get a very special guest appearance from Doink the Clown. He comes out.
Yeah, I fucking froze when I saw Doink. I was like, no, you are not getting involved with Tatanka. I am not watching this at next WrestleMania. I will throw Blake's WWE subscription out of the window.
I just put it on the company account. It's all right. But no, Doink comes out.
That's where the credit card went.
And fuck my quivering quim. I couldn't believe it. I was so angry, and like you say, I almost had like a panic attack. I was like, I can't do this again. Next, like he's on an undefeated streak, Tanker, right? So my worst fear was next year WrestleMania, he loses his first ever match to Doink the Clown. Whichever one of them.
What a stain. What a fucking stain on a career that would be.
Luckily, to be fair though, he isn't that much of a factor in this match.
No, he literally comes out with a funny umbrella that squirts water and he sprays the audience and the camera a bit.
And I believe he's holding like a box in one of his hands as well. So I thought, oh god, he's going to interfere, like it was Kamala that one time where he looks in the box and then he punched through it or whatever. But luckily, he's a bit of a non-factor. But while he's come out and Tatanka is distracted, Von Cruz gives him like a poke in the eye, and he works over to Tatanka in the corner. And Vince McMahon offers some verbiage now, which I literally had to pause the episode and go, oh my god.
Yeah, I know what you're going to talk about. And like when I heard it as well and I wrote it down, I was just thinking, do we need to bring this up? And I'm not saying that, I'm not decrying you for wanting to talk about it. It's just, I mean, you and I have spoken in private about how deplorable some of the shit they said back in this era is, like in terms of sexuality and race and, knowing what's going to come ahead with a lot of the transphobic stuff that's also going to come by, like, I just don't want to be propagating the regular bigotry, I'm going to call it, of the early Raw eras just by repeating what they're saying.
Yeah, you know what?
Especially with...
You're quite right.
Like, yeah.
Let's not even give it the airtime. You mentioned something about him and his Native American lineage, and it's incredibly offensive. And Nathan, you are quite right. The only thing we're doing by breathing it into the air and speaking about it now in 2021, current year argument, is basically contributing sort of to the problem. We've drawn attention to it, but you're quite right.
But yeah, I mean, like I'm just saying is, like, for the comfort of the people listening at home, they probably don't want to hear, I don't really think it removes us far enough from the situation if we're just going, oh, isn't it bad that they said X?
Yeah, quite right. So we going back to the action in the ring. Von Cruz looks dreadful. He looks kind of a bit flabby and out of shape, and he looks gassed already. And his moves aren't crisp or clean. Obviously it's the first time we've seen him on the show, and obviously, being his first appearance, I'm not going to kind of have too much of a downer on him because he's still got room to improve. Fair play, but we may see him develop over the coming weeks into something of a fantastic, good wrestler. So I'm holding out positive feelings towards him that he might get better later.
That's the thing. The way he was talked about made it sound like he was basically like a special guest appearance from some German company or something. That was my assumption anyway.
Yeah, maybe.
So I don't know if we're going to see him again.
He's like you say, special guest star from some sort of German wrestling federation. Could be. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. So they swap over in the corner with the chops. They go from a corner-to-corner Irish whip. There's a power slam and an elbow drop from Tatanka. It gives him a suplex, and Von Cruz, it's like a bomb's been dropped on him. He's just demolished. He comes back into it a little bit. Off the Irish whip, he kind of hits like this diving, spinning forearm a la Cesaro, which I thought was quite cool. And Von Cruz beats him down a little bit. And then on the commentary at the moment, they're teasing the fact that they're going to have a match, potentially, maybe have a match between the Beverly Brothers and Money Inc. next week. So a little bit of...
That's what the Beverly Brothers are crying about in the middle of the ring, that they wanted. That, like we said, they were like, come on, fight us then. What are you going to do about it? There is also something else that gets mentioned on the commentary team. It's basically brought up that Rob is especially quiet this week. And Macho comments that it's probably because he's got a thing for Luna Vachon, and Luna's rejected his advances. And Rob simply replies, "No, it's okay, I'm boning up here." And I have no idea what he means by that, but you're a professional, Rob. Keep it away until after the show.
Keep it in your pants, mate.
You got other things to be doing without spanking your dirty deli counter.
Yeah, we have got no time for hand-to-gland combat. Not now. Do it later.
Anyway, that's the levity of this match.
They start trading blows. There's a bit of the thing is, there's a weird bit here where even Tatanka doesn't look great because he gives him a backdrop to Von Cruz. And it looks a bit sloppy, and they didn't quite connect cleanly enough to get the backdrop. But again, I think that might just be Von Cruz being a touch-out position, so I'm not going to blame Tatanka for that. He goes into his war dance. He goes off the ropes. He ping-pongs from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side, back to the left-hand side, and then hits him like a running chop. And then, just turn my notes over, he wins easily with a Samoan drop. He picks him up, slams him, wins. Perfect little match for Tatanka there. And it's said at the end there, he is still undefeated. So he's getting touted as being this unstoppable winning good guy, which I think is absolutely fantastic because, as everyone knows at home, I'm sure you're aware as well, I absolutely adore Tatanka. I think he's fantastic.
So do I. Whenever I see him on the card, my reaction is, fuck yes, I'm going to enjoy this one. And you know what? Von Cruz wasn't a perfect pairing for him, but overall it was a pretty enjoyable watch, this match, I reckon.
Yeah, it wasn't the worst thing we see tonight.
No, God, no. It would be hard to top that.
There's a rare replay of the finish as well. They replay the finish for you, so they show you the finish again, which I think is quite nice. I'm glad now we're bringing a bit more production value into it, and we're seeing replays and things of key moments of the action. They probably could have picked a better moment. It was a bit of a strange moment to have a replay. I know it's the finish of the match, but we saw it literally a second ago. Usually you'd want to use it for maybe a controversial decision or just get a bit more context, but there we are. Replay's a replay. It's all good to me.
Mm-hmm. Then we go into a WrestleMania report with
we do indeed.
Sean Mooney. But I've got to say, the intro to the WrestleMania report feels kind of hollow having Yoko and Brett on the side of the buildings.
Yeah.
Feel like a more accurate reflection, have both Hulk Hogan in both their places.
No, I reckon what they should have done is have him looming over like King Kong. So you see the building, and there's Hulk Hogan with the building in his each fist, and he's just leaning over at the camera, or a big golden statue dead in the middle of the center of the frame of Hulk Hogan, just looking great.
Yeah.
It's strange that Sean Mooney's doing it. Obviously we've got no Mean Gene doing the report this time round, but I'll tell you what though, he does a really good job. It's nice to see him again.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, when was the last time we saw him? Actually, now I think about it.
Probably either the first episode or the second.
Yeah, it was one of the early ones because he only really sort of appears outside of the building.
Yeah, it's strange to see him.
It's nice to let him in the studio.
Yeah, right. It's nice to let him get in, feel the benefit, get warm. I just want to say to you, then, Nathan, who is it that's referring to WrestleMania 9 as the greatest in history? He says they're all saying that WrestleMania 9 is the greatest history. Well, he should be arrested and thrown in prison for lying.
For telling dirty fibs.
He says that it will go down in the annals of history, and I said more like the annals of history. What?
Yeah, and they recap the championship belt fiasco, and apparently President Jack Tunney of the WWF has confirmed that Hulk Hogan is still the champion, despite all of our messages and postcards that we've sent him begging him not to let that happen.
Yeah, despite the 16,000 signature petition that we had a quick whip round for, apparently it's allowed to go ahead. He is now officially the world champion. And he hasn't appeared last week and he hasn't appeared this week. So he's really putting the effort in.
And he's still putting over the fucking idea that the second doink was a goddamn illusion.
Oh, this
we
made me
have
so
video
angry.
evidence.
I'm so annoyed. Get off it. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. He says oh yeah, Bobby Heenan joined them on the commentary desk and he was under the impression that the second doink was an illusion, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what? You don't need to bring this up again. Just mention there was a second doink. You don't need to go through this weird pantomime of trying to convince us that you think that Bobby Heenan thinks it's an illusion. It's so roundabout and just cringy and ridiculous. I didn't like it at all.
No, and again, what's the point in trying to push the WrestleMania replay if you're just saying everything that fucking happened?
That's one of the main surprises, I'd say, the second doink, and they're just basically giving it away to you for nothing.
You say a surprise.
Well,
Doink mentions the double vision immediately beforehand, and we knew what was going to happen, Blake.
Yeah, but
we knew, and we did nothing to stop it, so we are just as culpable.
We couldn't, Nathan. It all happened so fast. I couldn't do it in time. I couldn't change the channel or turn it off But
there is also something else there was something quickly that was mentioned because the Luna Vachon interview that's going to be happening fairly soon is brought up again. And they mentioned that Sensational Sherry's going to be a part of it as well, which they didn't mention in the start of this show, but they did mention in the previous episode of Raw. So, the way that it was being billed, I figured that it was going to be a surprise, especially the way that Sherry does get herself involved with the interview. I figured it would have been better to sort of say, oh, Sherry's in the building, but whether or not she's going to be showing up for the interview, we don't know. But it just feels like this strip said, yep, Luna's there, Sherry's there, they're going to go at it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it does feel like they wanted to do both, didn't they? They wanted to make it a surprise so everyone goes, oh, it's all going to go off, but at the same time say to you, oh, no, do watch this bit because this is going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just
Send your mum out the room ready so you can get your trousers down.
Yeah, exactly. I bet Rob Bartlett's oh no, we have to mention it because I want some masturbating buddies. Yeah, so Hulk's
At
officially
least someone to
champion.
bone up with.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think the phrase, this is referring to The Undertaker and Giant Gonzalez, the phrase that Sean Mooney uses, both their careers can barely survive this feud, is true for at least... It's true.
I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, it's true for at least one of the participants, so that's good, isn't it? Semi-accurate, I suppose.
I think the better way of phrasing that is Undertaker's career barely survived the encounter.
Yeah, or just going oh, the Undertaker got off fine, but Giant who? We go to an advert break and we come back to what is supposed... Oh, go on.
I was going to say, there's something special about this advert break. It's an Ico Pro ad, but it's a new Ico Pro ad because they don't want to have former champion Bret Hart be the face of Ico Pro. He's a loser. He lost to Yokozuna, who is worse than Hulk Hogan, don't you know?
In 90 seconds. So who is it?
Yeah, it's got the Steiner brothers. They're just in the gym flexing, and then Scott looks at the camera and yells, "You gotta want it."
Yeah, it's only a quick 5-second spot, but it's nice that we're getting a new Ico Pro ad. So it's good because it shows.
I was just going to say, at the same time, I barely understood what Ico Pro was when Bret Hart was advertising it. Now it just has the catchphrase, "You gotta want it." I have no fucking clue what it's supposed to be. If I hadn't looked it up and seen the previous Muscle Mist or whatever you called, or whatever that stuff was called, in the few episodes ago.
I think it's a nice, interesting look into who Vince thinks is popular and who is going to get a bit more famous and push. Because to change Brett out, because obviously he's a champion, but to then give it to Scott and Rick, who aren't champions, they aren't the tag team champions, shows obviously that they have quite a big, kind of big Vince McMahon backing backstage to refilm the advert. 5 seconds as it was, but you're quite right. It's difficult to understand what it actually was. And now we've got Marble Mouth Scott Steiner. That's the voice and the face of Ico Pro. Indubitably, I don't, Big Booty Daddy. How I got this big booty. Invictus Smile Joe. You get the idea with that.
Yeah.
So we go to the interview, or we're supposed to. It's saying, now we've got an interview with Rob Bartlett and Luna Vachon, but it cuts over and Rob Bartlett is just reading the latest edition of WWF magazine, complete with like a big picture of Hulk Hogan with a shit-eating grin on his face, as if to rub it in to go, oh well, we've now committed it to print, so it's official. Then we go out to an ad again. So literally 30, 45-second bit, then back to an ad. And then we come back and it's the interview. So yeah, a bit of a weird kind of 5-minute chunk there where it's just not really much happening. A lot of faffing around. And yeah, we go to the interview. So Luna Vachon comes out to the ring looking brilliantly crazy. Like she...
Fucking incredible.
I could literally talk about Luna Vachon till the cows come home. She is fantastic.
Just the makeup, the costume design, like...
Her voice.
Oh, yeah, she's just growling and crowing at the audience like, you know nothing of me. Like, my throat just hurts thinking about how she sounds. I don't know how she managed to hold that up for so many years.
The only downside is I couldn't really understand bits of what she was saying because it was so growly, and she's very active. She's constantly sort of stamping around and moving back and forth and waving her arms around. So it's tricky to keep the microphone at the optimum place to pick up her mad ramblings.
And she's always like hunched over and leering like she's Frankenstein's fucking monster.
She's got she presents herself such an interesting visual way, like sort of jerking about, and she's awesome. She's really cool.
But yeah,
I really
everything about her is fantastic character work.
So I love it. Lots of overacting. She sounds like Rita Repulsa from the Power Rangers. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then so basically the kind of crux of the whole conversation is, she says, I'm better than Sherry. I'm better than everyone. I kicked her ass at WrestleMania, and then I kicked her ass again in the tent, and I'm gonna do it again. And Rob's like, well, you're not gonna say it to her face, are you? And he was like, well, she's like, oh well, if she was here, I'll say it to her face. I'll say it behind her back. I'll say it on television. I'll say it at home. I'll say it in the supermarket. I'll say it in the bath. Not really. But she's like, I would say it literally anywhere. It doesn't bother me. So it's like, okay, then we'll bring her out. You can say it to her face. And Sherry comes out with a face like thunder.
Yeah, she's ready to kill. And again, dressed to the nines, makeup on point.
She looks
amazing.
Great. My queens, they look fantastic. And the crowd loses it. They're like, they know it's gonna come to something. It's not just gonna be words here tonight in the Mid Hudson Civic Center in Pewter City, New York, or wherever it is. So Sherry cuts a promo and basically says, oh, I will... Hers isn't as good. She's not got the same strength in her vocal delivery or that same sort of clear speaking, even though she's like doing a character and a voice, but still pretty good. She's like putting a finger in her face and she's saying like, oh, you're coming out here mouthing off. I'm going to get you. And there's nothing you can do about it. And then, she catches Luna Vachon with a kick in the chin. Around Bob Bartlett.
Vicious fucking looking kick. Like, was it the chin? Because I thought it got her in the throat.
Oh, it might have done. It made like a weird noise, didn't it? And also, I literally, because I was watching it, and I literally went, oh! Like, that's it. Yeah. That's the only bit that got a noise out of me. Like, it looked vicious.
And then she just, like, obviously, like, Bartlett's trying to get between them to stop it, but Sherry just, like, destroys the stupid shirt that Bartlett's wearing.
Yeah, it does get a bit crazy. Like, she, like, pulls the shirt off him, she, like, throws him on the ground. She goes through to get to Luna Vachon, and they start brawling, like, she starts beating her up and stuff. And where are we? So then Luna Vachon comes back to try and beat her up again. Like she starts returning fire. And then Sherry chokes Luna Vachon with the camera cable.
Yeah.
Brilliant action. Like really good action. And then unfortunately for me, I kind of went off the boil on this bit, if I'm honest. This is why we can't have nice things, I think, Nathan, because this is the first time we've seen two women have a feud independently of a man, or even just two women have an altercation or want to wrestle, like, the birth of maybe some televised women's wrestling at long last, and two really good people to start it with. But because it's 1993, and obviously we do have that unequal treatment of the men and the women, they do start to then devolve in just pulling each other's clothes off, which I really feel like doesn't suit either character. Luna Vachon isn't somebody that would want to do that or try and do that.
No,
and I think Sherry's the same.
Luna Vachon is billed as like this weird freak of a character, so to then try and sexualize her feels, I don't know, it feels dirty, and not in like
felt very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and Sherry again. I mean, she's there as kind of like to me, she doesn't have as strong a character as Luna.
No,
like nothing's like quite her character, as in my opinion, is I am a badass woman. That is my character. Yeah. And then, you know, her breasts are nearly exposed for our pleasure.
Well, yeah, kind of, I guess. Like, I mean, her shirt comes open, and you can see like her top she's wearing underneath it. And then she kind of gets Luna Vachon's trousers down a little bit and pulls her thong out and things. And it's really sort of, then it just evolves into like catfighting and rolling around on the floor. When beforehand, like I say about a devastating kick, they were actually wrestling. Like Luna Vachon comes back out of some section, and she kind of comes over the top rope, and she's just laying in punches on Sherry. So to go from having an actual fight.
And Sherry gave, like, Luna a real mean fucking suplex as well. One that nearly caved the skull in of Rob Bartlett as well. So, you know, triple points in my opinion.
Win-win all round.
But yeah, like you say, it devolves from, like, really solid looking, like, outside the ring, like, rough fucking wrestling into, right, now let's pull each other's clothes off and, like, get in amongst the audience and, you know, get skin on skin, etc.
Yeah, we are but simple women. We can't do proper wrestling moves. It's really
like I say, like, they run into the audience, and now I caught this, like, just because I was pausing to write notes, but I paused at exactly 32 minutes into the episode, and there's a portly mustachioed man with a boy on his shoulders who's gurning down at her, and it's a wonderful face, and I hope I can capture it for the video of this.
Well, you've given yourself a timestamp, so I reckon you got a good shout here, Nathan. But yeah, so everyone kind of crowds around them, and you lose the sight of them for a little bit, and then Sergeant Slaughter comes out to try and break it up, and the referees come out to try and break up, basically trying to get them out of the crowd again, because there's two women in the crowd not wearing very many clothes, and people are like just dogpiling towards them to try and get close to them. And the commentary team's disgusting, because of course it is. They're all woofing and barking and you know, going, oh, catfight and all this shit. Luna Vachon gets taken up the ramp.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
So, has Sergeant Slaughter, like, retired from wrestling at this point, or... Because all I see him now is basically as a bodyguard.
I believe
like someone to, like, tidy away people.
I believe he's the commissioner, is he not, at the moment?
Oh, is he? Okay.
I think so. Or he goes into being the commissioner, and the commissioner might be Gorilla Monsoon, but he has kind of a backstage role of, in kayfabe, supposed to be like the enforcer almost, the guy they send out straighten the wrestlers out. He's respected, and if Sergeant Slaughter says don't do that, stop misbehaving, you don't do it. So, like, kind of like a vice principal, I guess, to Gorilla Monsoon's head teacher.
Fair enough.
We go to an advert break, and we come back, and Macho Man is kind of interviewing Sherry, I want to say. Sherry's got hold of his hat, and she's standing in her literal underwear. So, not as in a bikini, not as in wrestling gear, but literal underwear, because you can see the tags coming out the back of her bra and at the top of her underwear.
Yeah.
So she's basically in her nethers.
And she's using Macho's hat to, like, cover her chest area.
Yeah. Luna Vachon, this is where Luna Vachon comes back out. And she slides into the ring, and where they're standing on the other side, she kind of leans out of the ring, starts, like, beating up Sherry, and we kind of go back into this brawling again. And then they kind of split apart, and Sherry tells us that she'll take on Luna wherever, whenever. So hopefully maybe we'll get a match that's actually a match.
And it should also be mentioned that Scott Taylor is already in the ring ready for the next match.
Yeah, so...
He's just standing around, like, watching what's going on. It's like, I want to get wrestling. I want to get on this.
I sort of feel quite bad for him, because he's, like, sort of standing in the ring getting ready to start his match, and there's just, like, women flying about all over the place, and he's just like... Doesn't try and get involved with Nathan, I've noticed. He just keeps himself to himself. He leaves you be, you leave him be. Do you know what I mean?
Can you imagine what kind of a pillock you'd feel like just standing in the ring while two women are, like, half naked, like, rolling around outside? It's like you feel kind of like the centre of attention, but also background noise.
Yeah, I mean, I've written in amongst all this, Papa Shango tries to make his entrance, because again, even when the music starts and Papa Shango comes to the ring, the focus is very much on Sherry and Luna, which is great on the one hand, because it's a very interesting story, and this is just, like, basically a quick 5-minute squash match, essentially, not to ruin it too much for you. But at the same time, it's kind of like where the focus is in the wrong place. And it didn't, the shift between that and Papa Shango coming in felt a bit pants and a bit rubbish and a bit bad and a bit disrespectful to Papa Shango, I think.
So I did want to have a quick talk about Luna Vachon, particularly her final years. Apparently she did a lot of good charity work during her career, like particularly with Make-A-Wish, which a lot of wrestlers do. You know, we hear a lot about, you know, the hundreds of children that John Cena has visited and a lot of the other WWE talent. You know, and she was incredibly proud of that work. Unfortunately, in 2009, she suffered a house fire that destroyed all of her wrestling memorabilia. So everything throughout her entire career had been completely destroyed. And that prompted Mick Foley, who I know you're a big fan of.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
to put a public call out to fans and other wrestlers who had worked with her to gather what Luna memorabilia they had and, send it over to her, which I think was like a really nice gesture.
Yeah.
He even, to try and get her back on her feet, he even offered her like a job on TNA. But she turned it down just because like she was like happy, she was done with wrestling. Like she didn't want to get back in the business at all. And unfortunately, she passed away just a year later at 48.
Oh God, that's quite a sort of tough end for her, I suppose, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's rough, and that's why I was like last week, like I wasn't certain if I wanted to bring it up, just because there's not like much positive to bring from it. But if the rest of her career is reflected by how she has performed today in this episode of Raw, then I am fucking eager to see everything that she does, like in the coming episodes of Raw and everything that she does in wrestling. I only hope that she's treated better in terms of, she's not just put there for, ogling and cat fights. I mean, obviously, like, women's wrestling at this point in Western territories isn't particularly well respected. So, yeah, I hope she's put to some good work and we see even more of her because, yeah, like, just the interview and the few bits of, like, actual combat that we saw her involved in here was fucking phenomenal, and I look forward to it.
I reckon she'll rapidly become a firm favourite of the show because she is fantastic. She's a real a real bright candle in the wind, darkness, whatever you want to say. Do you know what I mean? Like she's a real standout hero of mine, I'd say. But yeah, Scotty Too Hotty's in the ring, Scott Taylor.
Yeah, for some reason Howard Finkel calls him Skip Taylor.
Oh yeah. That is weird.
I don't know if that's a nickname or if he just like misread the card, if he's still reeling from being assassinated last week. I don't know what's going on with him though.
Yeah, he's probably still a bit blurry-eyed.
And the smoke from fucking Papa Shango's like smoking skull on his attire as he enters the ring, that is not like dissipating this time. Like, he's been in Poughkeepsie before, so I don't know if they just haven't cracked open a window this time or what, but it is filling the arena, and it looks uncomfortable to breathe.
With a potentially toxic gas. Well, I think what they should do, Nathan, is probably get a window open quick smart, because the heat and the electricity coming off of Sherry and Luna fighting or could provide a spark and blow up the entire arena. They're just too hot and sexy, Nathan. Yeah, so we go into the actual match in the ring. Papa Shango takes control straight away. He no-sells Scotty's punches and the drop kicks that he does. They go into the corner and he basically picks him up by the ears and just throws him halfway across the ring.
Yeah, Scott Taylor is fucking murdered for 5 minutes. That's this entire match.
It's fantastic. Scott gives like a short Tom and Jerry-esque style yell as he's thrown from the power slam position off the shoulder.
Sorry, I took a drink at the wrong time.
I thought I'd try and get you there while you were drinking. He does a thing where he holds a leg in each hand, Papa Shango does, and he like headbutts him, like dropping headbutts him in the gut. Rob Bartlett returns to the ring, well, to the commentary desk, with his shirt like hanging off, like he's been attacked by a panther.
Yeah. And he just like collapses and passes out in front of the commentary desk.
And then Macho has to go over and kind of slap him awake. So even now that the ladies have gone, the focus really isn't on the match. Like, it's on this kind of circus around the match. I found it quite cheap and cringy that Macho Man had to come around and try and wake him up from fainting, and he's like, "Oh, where am I? Oh, what's going on?"
Yeah, it was a bit much, but I'm sure that Macho got a little bit of, he was a bit happy to give Bartlett a bit of a slap around.
I reckon he would have been like mad eager if Vince was like, "Oh, I want to do a bit where Rob Bartlett comes in and then you've got to go wake him up," and he's like, "Yep, done."
It wasn't even scripted that Macho would go do it. He just saw his opportunity.
He was like, "Oh, I could smack him in the face and no one could tell me off." If only Hulk Hogan had come in from the gym and pretended to have passed out, and then I could have slapped him too.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying about like this. It really takes away from the match, because I love seeing Papa Shango. Problematic elements aside, like, he is a fun ass wrestler to watch, and obviously, we know Scott Taylor, not personally, but in the future he becomes part of Too Cool. What are they called? Yeah, Too Cool, something like that. And yeah, no, that's a fun old time whenever we get round to that. So it just feels really cheap to not be focusing on the match when there are other matches we could be taking away from.
Yeah, again, it's like that. You remember that time when we had Rob Bartlett flipping through the channels for the TV thing, and it was like you were looking at the TV. It was kind of like that. Like, if you just shifted when this kind of circus happens to a different match, I wouldn't have been as frustrated. But like then and like now, it does feel like we are wasting a perfectly good match in the ring for this bit of slapstick comedy on the outside. The only thing I will say is that there's one Rob Bartlett post-fainting Hayes joke that made me laugh out loud, but we'll come to that later.
Okay.
So, yeah, the end comes out of nowhere in the ring. Papa Shango gives him a backbreaker, I think, or that shoulder breaker, his finishing move, pins him, 1, 2, 3, done. He's won. In quite convincing fashion, quite good fashion. It's a shame we just couldn't see more of it in the ring rather than almost fanning about. We go to an advert break, and then what on earth is happening now? This is the bit I was talking about just a second ago with Rob Bartlett. As soon as like the angelic music starts playing, he just goes, "God, am I in heaven?" And I laughed, so I'll give him that. A monk comes out to this angelic choir, and until I saw the monk, the music was fine. I was like, "Oh, okay, this might be all right." I was thinking, like, Little John from Robin Hood, that great big guy. If you put like someone like that in a monk's robe, and he was like a fighting monk who doesn't want to fight because he believes in the power of the Lord above, and he gives his life to kind of like live innocently, and people just like rile him up, and he has to smite them, then that'd be fine. But Friar Ferguson comes out, and it cuts to a sort of praying young girl in the crowd. Like, it cuts to like this shot of this girl in the crowd, kind of almost like chewing her finger, but it looks like she's almost praying. So it kind of gives them the visual they want, I guess. And I've written down here in my notes, is he actually going to wrestle? I was still in disbelief. Have you seen this man, Nathan?
Oh, no, I fucking saw him, and I was just as confused by his appearance as I was by the fact that he has a notepad on his chest with a smiley face and just the word monk written on it.
Vow of silence,
what the fuck is that supposed to mean?
He's taking a vow of silence, isn't he? For the good Lord above. So he has to communicate through post-it notes.
You can look at him and tell he's a fucking monk. Unless he's just telling you what his favourite TV show is. He's a big fan of Tony Shalhoub.
I do think, actually, because I thought, I've got him here. I've got him on the ropes with this whole vow of silence thing. But at the same time, you are quite right. The fact that he felt the need to communicate he is a monk while he's dressed like Friar Tuck is a bit ridiculous. So I'll give you that.
Do you want to hear, Blake, the good news?
Okay, can I just give you quickly the guy he's wrestling, and then yes?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
So Friar Ferguson comes to the ring, and he's fighting a guy called Chris Duffy, who looks just as confused as I am. Nathan, go!
You'll be pleased to know that Friar Ferguson as a character does not last long.
How long?
I think... Now, I've heard conflicting reports. I have heard people say that he only has this one match, but I'm pretty sure that the thumbnail of the next episode of Raw also features Friar Ferguson, so I don't know what's happening there. But would you believe, Blake, the WWE, or WWF as it was known back then, had an official complaint lodged against them by the Catholic Church of New York?
Is that the only... Okay, hang on, wait. If that is the only reason why they dropped the monk thing... That's annoyed me just as much as if they hadn't bothered. If they looked at that and went, that's perfectly fine to put on our television programme until they got an official complaint from the Catholic Church, then that's going to piss me off. Because it's not all right, Nathan. It shouldn't take the Catholic Church to have to intervene to make that stop happening.
Do you want to know the bad news, though?
Go ahead.
I'm just trying to look up the name of the... there it is. So yes, this wrestler known as Michael Paul Shaw, who is playing Friar Ferguson, obviously this character lasts maybe a week, if that. He does, however, return as another character. One that is apparently very popular at its time. A character known as Bastion Booger. Whose entire character is... he eats a lot and he smells.
So basically, they've just taken the monk robe off him. That's it.
Pretty much. And they put him in what I can only describe as, like, a tinfoil gimp suit. Or some sort of, like, fetish gear. Like, you know how you see, like, the leather crosses with the circle in it? That, but silver.
I'm just imagining, that bit in Signs where they're sitting in the attic with the tinfoil hats on? Just it kind of goes along the line, and there's Bastion Booger sitting on the end. Not with a tinfoil hat, but a tinfoil gimp suit on. Just, all right, Mel Gibson.
And I think that's hindsight is 20/20, obviously, and like we're gonna look at that and think, oh god, this is awful. at the same time, it was the early 90s. Like, smelly, nasty pranks and gross was like the big thing. You know, you had your Ren and Stimpies. Like, that was the way that cartoons were going. That's just what kids kind of liked.
Yeah,
it was edgy and it was strange.
Yeah, gross humor was like a big thing. Like, you couldn't go a week on Noel's house party without someone getting gunk on them. Or Get Your Own Back, which is on TV, obviously, in England when we were growing up as kids. It was like the decade of disgusting, wasn't it? Like the Garbage Pail Kids and all the toys. Like, I remember there was a line of toys that had like a toilet that you put your like this sort of like putty in it that made fart noises. There was like a nose, there was like a candy that was like a nose, I think, and it was supposed to look like snot that you were eating. So that was kind of the era of just being disgusting for the sake of being disgusting. Okay, so this may be then like the new contender to the worst wrestling match I've ever seen.
I'm glad you agree with me, because that's what I like teased at you last week about, you know, how, because I think before this we were in agreement it was Kamala versus Doink, which was not only boring and repetitive, but the repetitive stuff, like the regular like neck holds or leg holds or arm holds, whatever he was doing, was just shit looking. But
it was so bad. This is something else.
This is like, I get gimmick matches. I get that. But to have such an bad, unfunny, like boring gimmick.
So so it's ambly pointless action, and I think, as you were saying a second ago, Nathan, that we get gimmick matches, but to give the gimmick, which is already a bad gimmick anyway, to a man who is over the hill in terms of age, he looks like an older man, and he just can't wrestle. He just can't do what he's been paid to do. Simple things like sort of shots and kind of punches and things look terrible. His like every time he lifts up Chris Duffy, his opponent, I worry for Chris Duffy's safety and his life, that it's going to get dropped on his head and get injured. And the problem is you're making Chris Duffy look like a complete chump, because you're having him wrestle a Friar and the Friar is beating him.
And the thing is as well, like I know that you've spoken to me before about Vince's weird obsession with certain jokes. Like, he, for some reason, finds people with lisps really funny.
Yeah.
Obviously, he has a bit of a thing for little people as well. And I can only imagine, on top of that, he also thinks that just big men are funny. Like, overweight individuals. Like, and not necessarily, they don't even have to be good at wrestling. Like, he can just pull a random 400-pound man from the street and say, "You'll do. Get in that ring, put on a funny costume, and dance around a bit."
He has the kind of humor, intelligence, and level of like a 3 to 5-year-old. He finds things that are different to him funny, and that's it. He also finds his daughter getting hit in the face with a pie by the Planet of the Apes the funniest thing in the world.
Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing that now.
So that's apparently he wanted to do it for her 30th birthday, but Linda wouldn't let him, so he got his own back about 17 years later. But yeah, so I hate wrestling, Nathan. I hate this. There's like slow, rambly, pointless offense. It's dreadful. The Friar no-sells a few of Chris's moves, and then he just gets made like an imbecile. There's a really bad botch. God knows what was supposed to be happening here. So Chris Duffy's down on the ground, and the Friar kind of goes off of the rope and walks slowly towards him. I wouldn't say runs. And hits him with a splash. As soon as the splash lands, a fraction of a second later, Chris Duffy kicks out, but the Friar stays on him, and the ref still counts to 2, and then the Friar has to get up, like, off of him.
Oh, is that what happened? Because I've got written down, like, Friar just releases a pin for no apparent reason. I didn't even see that Chris Duffy had kicked out. Like, all I saw was the Friar Ferguson lay on top of him, the ref count to 2, and then the Friar just get up.
Yeah, so as soon as he lands that splash, Chris kind of like kicks out of the splash straight away. Like, he kind of gets his shoulders up and he makes like a big jerking motion. And the referee still counts, even though he's kicked out. And then at 2, the Friar has to get off because he realizes, oh, hang on a minute, this isn't the finish of the match. I need to get off.
Yeah.
And the crowd boo. Like, it's so clear and obvious. And the crowd boo. Like, they hate it. And then they start chanting, what was it you said to me?
I'm pretty certain they're chanting, "We want Brett."
Which I want Brett as well.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it's around this time. I mentioned it last week that, like, Vince and Macho just seem to be getting really mean to Rob Bartlett. Like they're just like very child school, like bullying. It feels like playground bullying. Because I believe it's Vince mentions that Friar Ferguson is £385. Macho cracks the joke saying that's £1 lighter than Bartlett. And after Vince like says, "Oh, come on, Bartlett's not that heavy," then Macho says, "Fair enough. Like he's £1 heavier than Bartlett. How about that?" And it could have been left there, but Vince then cracks a joke about how Bartlett clearly doesn't use ICO Pro.
Yeah, and they were having to go at him earlier on for using blood as toothpaste, and yeah, they've been on him all night, and this is the thing, they were doing this last week over the phone, like to him as well. I bet they're so pleased that he's back, I reckon, because then they could just pick on him in person to see how much it hurts him, like face to face. But I said to you at the beginning of the show, I think he's dropped weight. I think he looks slimmer.
Yeah, he doesn't look bad.
Not at all. So they're kind of beforehand, yeah, fair enough, make fun of him being a bit portly because he was, but not now. Don't do it now. So there's a huge box crowd boo, and like I say, they start chanting for Brett. The Friar Ferguson, he puts his cassock or robe or whatever you want to call it over Chris's head at one point, and like sort of rubs it on his face. So it's like pressing his naked body against him.
And that's the thing, I don't get it. Is the joke that the robe smells? Is it that he's not wearing anything underneath the robe? Is it just because, haha, this man is fat, let's make him weirdly sexually promiscuous as well? That'll be funny.
So he's a monk, so I guess the implication is there's nothing on underneath it, so he's rubbing his bare belly against his head.
Is that a monk thing?
I don't know, but when you really think about it, it makes no sense anyway, because wrestling is a series of your head being on someone else's leg, arm, stomach, pec, neck, like your head.
Or grabbing a handful of the bollocks like Jerry the King Lawler did last time.
Your head is constantly coming into contact with different parts of people's naked bodies. That's just what your head does in wrestling. Your entire body does that. So why you'd be disgusted that your head... It must be that he's fat, I guess?
Yeah. I think that's just the entire joke of this thing.
I guess that carries over to Bastion Booger. I guess Bastion Booger's going to do a bit of that as well.
Yeah, that's going to be his entire character. Let's just remove the religious element.
Yeah, to like the Catholic Church, don't complain. He wins eventually by kind of, when Chris is on the ground looking up, he stands over him with a foot on either side and lifts up his robe so that Chris can see up his robe, where I'm presuming he's not wearing any underwear, and he just drops his bollocks onto Chris's face with a pin and wins.
And the crowd go fucking silent. They are dead for this match. What a fucking way to end the show.
What a pointless waste of everyone's time.
Why was this the last match? The only thing I can think of is that they wanted Friar Ferguson to be the next big thing. The way that Vince talked up Friar Ferguson at the beginning, I think they had already made the toys. Like they'd gotten like the full page spreads like printed out in the WWF magazine already. And then Catholic Church said, fuck off with that shit. And they were like, oh dear, let's get another, let's just change his outfit.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think obviously it's a very strong look. It's very toyetic. Like it's a very sort of distinct, unique thing to look like. And as a toy, I'm just thinking now it would probably fit in quite well with that range of toys that they've been advertising that you very kindly bought me one of for my birthday.
You're welcome.
So yeah, I can imagine in that ring, sort of like British Bulldog, Hulk Hogan, Friar Ferguson, Sergeant Slaughter in toy form would.
But the thing is, Blake, that to try and save money, they give all the toys the exact same like body shape, like they did with He-Man toys. But you can't do that with Friar Ferguson. They'd have to get a new mold. It would be too expensive.
Yeah, they'd have to go from having one mold that they keep pressing out into toys to two. But then they could do like they could use it later on though for toys of like Vader, for example, and Bam Bam Bigelow. Precisely.
Typhoon.
So I reckon Typhoon. Yeah, and then you can do another one of him when he's Tugboat or whatever he was, or Shockmaster.
That's what upsets me most. Is like, yeah, I mean, we've talked shit on Typhoon and Bam Bam Bigelow because they've had some bad matches in the past, but at the same time, they've both also had good matches, like that show, okay, they are big, but they can still be strong with it and look pretty damn good.
And they can wrestle.
Like, but there is like no inkling that this guy can do any form of wrestling other than, here is my character, they are large, please laugh.
Yeah, he shows no aptitude or ability to wrestle.
And I don't think that's limited to the character.
No, I don't think it's, like I say, I completely agree with you. I don't think it is a character decision that I look like I can't wrestle. I think it is the man cannot wrestle. He isn't the right shape for wrestling. He isn't the right age to start wrestling. Everything about him should have nothing to do with the world of wrestling at all. As someone who kind of wants to do a bit of amateur pro wrestling himself, that's the kind of thing that I feel sometimes, that I don't look like a wrestler, I don't speak like a wrestler, I don't act like a wrestler. But if Friar Ferguson can make it, Nathan, I believe in myself. I can do it, I think.
All you got to do is piss off a major religious institution.
I've done that already. Yeah, so he makes me not like watching wrestling, Friar Ferguson. Like, I don't want to have to say to somebody, oh, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm recording an episode of my wrestling podcast, which is the coolest sentence in the world already. And they go, oh, wrestling.
Yeah, I'm white, so what of it?
Oh, wrestling. Isn't that a thing that has that wrestling friar on? And I have to go, yeah.
I like that he's in this like imaginary world of yours. He is the most infamous part of wrestling.
Yeah, like in this imaginary conversation I'm having with somebody, like everyone knows the wrestling friar. I don't want to have to associate myself with that because it looks like I endorse it. We go to an advert break for we go to an ad for WrestleMania 9, and it's basically just a montage of Todd Pettengill going around interviewing fans. And this is quite nice.
This is the bit where I wrote, like, they found the 3 people in the audience who enjoyed WrestleMania 9.
It's quite nice. Everyone seems, you say, quite happy that they went to WrestleMania. And I reckon if you were there, I reckon it would have been a nice afternoon. I reckon just
there's nothing quite like a live energy.
Yeah, and I reckon because it's old now and it's not a very good one in terms of what we've had before or since. But I reckon if you were there, you probably had fun. It's a nice hot day. You can get drunk off some beers and stuff and watch some guys
throw
and gals.
Beer at Todd Pettengill.
Yeah, or piss.
Whatever you got to hand.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it would have been pretty good. But yeah, it's quite a nice advert, and I quite like that little spot they did for WrestleMania 9. I'm still not going to watch it again. And if I was around in '93 and I had taxpayers' permission, I wouldn't ask my mum to buy me the pay-per-view again. I've been burnt once before. We are now going to go to Money Inc. To accept the wrestling match for Beverly Brothers. Psych! No, we're not. We go to an advert again. Then we come back. Then we go to picture in picture. So you've got a picture of Money Inc. And then in a little corner, there's the guys at the commentary desk. And they go, oh, just before we go to Money Inc., we're going to give you a quick rundown of what's happening next week. And then the picture of Money Inc. disappears. And they just tell you what happens next week. And then it goes to Money Inc. Fuck me.
It's a fucking mess, this bit, because like I was watching the time. It's like, oh, they've said they've got a promo with Money Inc., but there's like a minute left. They can't. Oh, they're going to another advert break. Okay. Now they're going to do the. Oh no, they've got another thing they want to talk about first. How are they going to fit this in? And then eventually it does get to the Money Inc. interview. They get 2 fucking words out, and then they get attacked.
Yeah, so it goes to them, and they go, oh, you. And then, like you say, from a door, which is suspiciously centre frame of the shot, it flies open, the Beverly Brothers run out, and Raw goes off the air in chaos. Everyone's shouting and grunting.
Yeah, it's like you could hear it in Vince's voice. He was thinking like, fuck, how I've got like 5 more bits I need to squeeze in this last like 2 minutes. How the shit am I going to do this? So he's just like rambling, Money, go.
Yeah.
And then just bam, 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 close.
No, Bam Bam was on earlier.
No, he wasn't. He was in last week.
Oh, yeah, he was. You're right. Fuck me. Hush my mouth. But yeah, it's just, a million miles an hour. And I know I say it quite often, but I can save them some time. And I can this week. There is £385 of dead weight on this show that we can easily get rid of. Have Chris Duffy wrestle himself if he has to. Don't just... There you are. I've saved you 5 minutes. So you can literally take us lovingly, hold us by the hand and walk us through next week in fine detail if you want. And then let Money Inc. cut like a 3-minute promo and then get jumped. What a mess.
Did you catch what was going to happen next week? Because I didn't.
Oh, no, neither did I. We're both on each other.
I was too upset. Let's close this.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Okay, so Nathan, what did you like? What didn't you like?
I've got to admit, it's pretty thin pickings here. Like, Luna Vachon, Sensational Sherry, moi. Apart from, like, the obvious, catfight ensuing, like, beautiful interview. I love hearing them both go at each other in the theatre of vocal combat. Tatanka wasn't on his best form today, I don't think, but I'm always happy to see him. Like, even on his, like, low points, he is still a damn good competitor. So I enjoyed that. And, IRS versus Scott Steiner. IRS, not a fantastic combatant. And Scott Steiner, it's weird to see him in a singles combat at this point in his career. Overall, pretty entertaining. Everything else I can't really speak to. Papa Shango and Scott Taylor. It was good while it lasted and what we could see of it. But fucking, yeah, Friar Ferguson, like, that final match will put this in one of, like, my lowest Raws I've ever seen. Like, it was so bad, it has tainted my opinion of Raw and wrestling in general. The fact that they would let this happen is despicable. So, Blake, how about you? I mean, I can't imagine your opinions differ fairly much from mine, but what was your high points? What were your low points?
I get what you mean. Friar Ferguson, out of WrestleMania and now this, I feel helpless, Nathan. I just can't stop it. I can't. I'm just not clever or quick enough or strong enough to stop these crimes that are happening. What did I like? I'm going to completely 100% agree with you. Sherry and Luna, highlight of the show, obviously, apart from the sort of stripping angle of it. The Tatanka match was, 50-50 for me. Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it was all right. Papa Shango and Scott, probably a brilliant match. But like you say, we only saw such a fraction of it. We can't speak with much efficacy of whether it was or it wasn't. Money Inc. Well, not Money Inc. Sorry, even I'm doing it now. IRS versus Scott Taylor. Not Scott Taylor. What am I doing? Scott Steiner. Was probably my favourite bit, I guess. I enjoy seeing the two tag teams wrestle, and it wasn't so bad just watching them wrestle on their own. So yeah, I'm probably going to say that was probably my favourite bit out of the show. And just like kind of the post-match beatdown as well. Even though I was a bit disappointed, it was like a screwy finish, like it was a disqualification. It makes sense. I'm all right with it. You know, it's good, and I'm hoping this means that we're going to get, after they get rid of Beverly Brothers, we're going to get the Steiner Brothers versus Money Inc. for tag team championships. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
That's the thing. Like, if anything good comes out of this Raw, I am just happy that there is a storyline that is actually happening here. Like something that I can see going to the next big pay-per-view and then having its like big payoff at the end. Like the Beverly Brothers versus Money Inc. Great, fair enough. Like, I don't consider either of them particularly like top of the bill, fantastic wrestlers, but hey, there's a story happening that isn't, I'm going to take my clothes off, or I am a large gentleman who's going to do a little dance for you.
Yeah, the things I didn't like, the commentary was kind of a bit mean-spirited. Rob Bartlett, going back to the beginning of the show when I really just didn't like him, I'm kind of over that now. Like, he's all right. He's fine, isn't he? He's fine.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if we've just gotten used to him or whether I just feel sympathy for him from all the bullying he's receiving. But I sort of feel like he's there.
He's getting it from the commentary. He doesn't need it from me as well. You know what I mean?
I think also the fact that, Rob Bartlett is, like, not very good has become a joke amongst Vince and Macho now. Now we can't make those jokes either. It's like when we started making fun of them for not getting the uncooked, uncensored, uncut wrong, and then they started making jokes about that. It's like, well, now I don't want to bring it up anymore.
Now
they've taken my fun away.
Yeah, they've taken the fun out of it for me now. But like his whole bit where he comes back, and he's supposed to like be like he faints and stuff was just so like, oh, what am I watching? A kids show? Like, come on! Like, I didn't buy it. I didn't believe it. It kind of took me out of the immersion of watching wrestling rather than suckered me further in. Apart from that bit where he went God when the music started, that was pretty good. Obviously, dancing around the main point. Friar Ferguson is one of, if not the worst wrestling characters I've ever heard of. And for the first time in my life, I'm actually going to say thank you to the Catholic Church for doing us all a favour. Yeah, all right, you're funny about not wanting to use condoms, but you got rid of this wrestling friar guy, so you're all right in my book now. So yeah, that's that's where I sit on the whole thing. And I want to say that I think this is probably tied bottom worst episodes of Raw that I have ever seen.
Well, that's the thing, because like the other like really bad episodes that we've talked about have just been boring or like not like that's been like the cardinal sin, for want of a better term, of the previous episodes. This one has just been the only word I can think of is deplorable.
Yeah,
In so many ways.
Like I've been robbed of many things: my time, my dignity, my self-respect, my love of wrestling. No, I was most actually excited, but yeah, no, it is pretty trash. This one, skip it unless you want to see a big fat man pretending to be a friar.
And if you do want to watch that, stay tuned on the channel. I've got a surprise for you.
Because yeah, you'll be on again next week.
I was just going to say, Blake bought a little toga. I've bought myself a costume. I don't want to give too much away.
You're going to be on next week as a friar, yeah? Yeah, so hopefully next week's better. I'm still holding out hope. I think by this point in Raw chronology, if I was watching, I would have started watching Raw, and I was thinking about this in the bath this morning. I probably would have followed Raw and then Mania and Superstars, got grown into loving all three of them. And then probably this Monday night one would have been the first one to come off my list, if you know what I mean. I probably would have stuck to just the other shows because I think the last two have been kind of not really worth our time. Do you get what I mean? So I sort of feel like my time is probably better spent if I was in 1993 watching Superstars and Mania at the weekend. I've been at work on a Monday. It's the first day of the week. I don't want to have to come home and explain to my children this. I don't want this to happen on my first day home from I'm to go back to work. This is awful. Mondays are bad enough.
It paints Raw in a really bad light because you got the one that was pre-WrestleMania that was just fucking terrible. Like that one was boring. And then you come back from Raw, you're missing one of the key core commentary members. And the wrestling itself is just tired. Like you've got some stars in there, but generally it's fairly mid-cardy battles. And so you just kind of watch that and think, okay, that's a bit boring after, the rip-roaring WrestleMania we had because I'm in 1993 and I enjoyed it apparently. And then you got this, which is just, excluding the lovely ladies, if this is the future of what Raw is going to be, I don't want to be a part of it.
No, me neither. I think what we should do is we have in Rocket League, you have the option to forfeit, and you'll have to go along with it. I reckon we should be able to once a month find an episode of Raw, and we should be able to make a vote. And if both of us agree that we want to jack it in, we should just be able to go, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck you. We're out of here. We'll go do something else. And we just quit.
At the same time, though, yes, I hated this episode of Raw, but I have been seething wanting to talk to you about it for the last 2 weeks. And that's worth something, surely.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that was a very probably pessimistic approach that I had there, just to sort of give up on the whole thing. Even though I feel like I've gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson, I'll be back next week for the next episode of Monday Night Raw. Maybe featuring a friar, maybe featuring some other type of clergyman, perhaps a bishop or a cardinal.
Maybe. I want Friar Ferguson versus the Iron Sheik. I think that would be the worst match in history.
I want on the next pay-per-view, I want a chessboard match. So I want they get a Friar Ferguson, he's the pawn, and then you have a bishop, a king, Jerry the King Lawler, he can be the king. Then we can have a queen as well, and basically
get Sherry and Luna Vachon on either side.
They have a chessboard match, so it's a giant chessboard, and they have to wrestle. But Bishop can only go diagonally, and you know what I mean. You know where I'm going with this.
We need to start our own wrestling promotion just to make this a regular card match.
We need to patent this before the WWE get their hands on it. But yeah, I will see you next week. Thank you ever so much for joining us for a dreadful 45 minutes of my life. It's been lovely talking to you, Nathan, about it.
Yeah, lovely talking to you. And I need to do the YouTube shilling thing because I think that's what everyone does now. So everyone make sure to do a sweet leg drop on that subscribe and like button.
Oh, that's awful. I hate it.
Oh. I wanted to do that just to upset you.
Yeah, make sure you put that subscribe button in the Cobra Clutch, brother.
I could do a sweet ass Steiner line on that bell so you get regular notifications, even though we upload on Monday at 12 p.m. GMT.
Oh, yeah, I'd love one, Nathan. Thank you. Let's go for GMT.
Oh, fucking yeah, let's do it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we should start shitting a bit more like that. That was kind of fun in a stupid way. Thanks so much, everyone. And yeah, we'll see you again next week.
Holy hell.